And then the smart meters came along. Now, let me talk about the smart meter. The smart meters are sold to us with the idea that the electric companies can feed back to us what rooms in our house and what instruments in our house are using excessive energy, and that the company will make some suggestions how to moderate our electric consumption so that our home is more green. It doesn't contribute to the use of electricity so much. That's what is being sold to us. But in fact, what we're getting when we have a smart meter on the house is a report that shows, yes, 3 days ago you used that much electricity, period. The electric company can tinker with the data that it's collecting and actually find out, oh, look, that every Tuesday and every Thursday they have an electronic babysitter because nobody is at home to sit the baby. They can figure out how much your TV is using. They can see the signature in the frequency pattern that is there, and they're actually selling those data to the community, to advertisement. So it's a business. It's a business that does not serve currently the way it's practiced at all the reduction of energy usage. Now, the smart meter sends an impulse, microwave impulse at 900 megahertz, between 17,000 and 190,000 times a day through your home, through the entire home. And that radiation can be over 600-fold, we measured it, of even by the EPA. The EPA set standards of what's acceptable, and these standards are way, way too high for our biological health. And we measured homes where it was up to 600 times above the standards that is set, which are way too high to start with, 600-fold. So what happens with the smart meters, there is a router that sends the information back to the electric companies, and whoever has their home closest to the router, that smart meter becomes a transmitter for the smart meters that are further away. And that smart meter then becomes a source of much, much increased radiation, microwave radiation that goes into the home that is sitting on at levels that we measured that were up to 600 times higher than even the high level that the EPA sets as acceptable. And here's what we've seen. One of my patients, a good friend of us, had a husband with Parkinson's disease who was doing okay for many years. The smart meter was installed. Within weeks, the patient has a dramatic downturn in brain function. He was no longer able to walk, and 6 months later, he died. My patient, who had recovered from Lyme disease 10 years ago and was in very stable, good health, the moment the smart meter was installed, her health went down, and she can no longer sleep any night. She has a constant feeling of vibration in the body. She feels like she's losing her mind, and she had to evacuate her home to save her life. She moved back in with family members. She has a beautiful home here in Mercer Island in Seattle, in the richest, wealthiest area, in a home that she can no longer live since the smart meter is there. Now we're trying, me as a physician, I try to explain to the electric company that, that they're destroying the health of the patient. The electric company, of course, tells us, well, there is no laws overseeing the electric company, is completely given free rein. As far as we know, the smart meters were never studied for the safety for humans. It's a technology done by private companies. These electric companies are private companies that have the right to install this on your house, destroy your health, and there's no accountability at all for it. So this is just one case. We have many cases where children had recovered from their learning disability, from their autism, from their asthma. Brain cancers had healed. They were non-detectable. The smart meter was installed. Within 6 months, the brain cancer is back. That was considered healed. The seizure disorder was back. The autism was back. Or children, usually the regressive form of autism, children are born normally. After the 3rd or 5th or 6th vaccination, when they're 18 months old, suddenly they have the downturn where they lose what they've gained. They lose their language, they lose eye contact, and they're bad. You don't see that with 8-year-olds, but we do. Children were completely normal, 8-year-old, in school, everything is good. Suddenly the child turns autistic, loses everything it's gained, including the language. An 8-year-old, where we find out the smart meter was installed by the house. So this technology is for a lot of people absolutely devastating. We do not know yet whether it's affecting everybody. Just some people notice it and other people just die quietly. There is this myth of electrosensitivity. Electrosensitivity and electroallergy are two different things. Yeah? It is our experience as physicians that everybody is equally electrosensitive. You install this thing, measurably certain things in your health go down. We tracking now, I say it here on TV, certain sensitive parameters of it. One is an inflammatory marker called TGF-beta-1, goes way, way up as soon as the smart meter is installed. The MMP9, that's the metalloproteinases, go way, way up. These are inflammatory markers. The copper level in the serum goes up as a sign of chronic inflammation driven by something that's suddenly there. The hormones go way off. The neurotransmitters go way off. So we have lab tests that we can show. Here's a patient. We monitor him for 10 years before. He was completely normal. The smart meter was installed 6 months later. The patient looks like a dying patient from the lab work. And we find those changes even in people that say, well, my wife is sick since the smart meter's in there, but I'm totally healthy. But we look at the lab work, it looks just as bad. So some people have an awareness of health and goodness in them, and other people don't. But from what our experience is that everybody is affected by it. It's not just a few 3% of electrosensitive people. And so I think I like to make that point here very clear. This is a devastating wrong technology that is, in the first place, completely not serving the purpose under which it's sold to us. It seems to be a marketing tool. It seems to be a tool to spy on people's homes for advertising purposes. We do not see any positive outcome that anybody has been informed of. Yes, every time your swimming pool goes on, your electric consumption goes up threefold. There's not the information that the patients get. They just get the general, yes, on Friday you use that much electricity, that's all you can get, but it doesn't give you any of the detail you need to actually be constructive to reduce your electric consumption. It's not serving that purpose, but it is destroying the health of a lot of people. And of course, for me, the main people that are affected by this is the children, and amongst the children, the unborn children and the fetus. The womb concentrates electromagnetic radiation multiple fold above what is measured on the outside of the woman's body. It concentrates the information, the concentration of microwave per square meter of the measurement that we do is concentrated on the inside of the womb. The studies are out on this, and it's devastating what's coming up towards us. So what's the solution? I give you a few things that people have tried. So one is the legal letter that is passed around on the internet that we've tried with the electric companies. There was one positive response where it was deinstalled, several failures. We tried to shield the smart meter towards the house, that we put lead lining against the house wall, between the wall of the house and the smart meter, to deflect it from the house. Usually the consequences that within a few weeks the electric company says, listen, we're not getting proper readings on your house, we need you to come and look up what's wrong. So there's then a game of hide and seek, where you remove the protection before they come, if you know when they're coming, and then you put it back on. My friends in Germany have found a $20 solution to it, since the smart meter is usually installed outside the home. My German friends have used what I call the German method. They bought a big axe and smashed the thing. Because it's on the outside of the house, nobody can prove that it was somebody who lives in the house, and people say, we're terribly sorry, but somebody's doing this, and then as soon as it's reinstalled, they do it again. And the golden rule over there is with the electric companies, if it's done 3 times, they go back to the old system, to not lose the information or the money. And so I don't know currently technically if there's a better solution. out. We are trying as physicians to inform the electric companies, assuming that they themselves don't know this information, that since the smart meter is installed, our patients have high blood pressure peaks. Erratic high blood pressure is the most common symptom that we see, and irregularity of the heart rate, of the pulse. Those are the first warning signs before the nervous system goes completely off. And so we're writing letters to the electric company and try the peaceful warrior way first, which has worked in some cases and not in others. And so then there's these other stages that we have tried. And I like to say, maybe as a conclusion to what I'm saying, I would say about 80% of health problems that we see now are caused or contributed to by the exposure to man-made electromagnetic fields that have never been studied for their safety. In fact, all the studies that were done, that were correctly done, show they're not safe. There is frequency bands in the electromagnetic spectrum that could be used in intelligent ways without harming us. There was a beautiful technology out called fiber optics, which was absolutely beautiful and clean and would have done everything that we need the communications industry to achieve in Western country. It was a beautiful, perfect technology that is now sort of being made redundant with a technology that's devastating to the human health, which I don't understand. We had something good and we replace it with something far worse. We see the same phenomenon worldwide in the Western world, but also now in the Eastern world, where cell phone towers are erected every day. We see the same health problems originating in people. We know cancer rates are going up. There was a famous study in Germany, was the NILA study that shows, cancer rates in a community where there's no cell phone tower, when there was compared when you bring the cell phone industry in. For 5 years, there's no increased cancer rates, and after 5 years, it goes up, and after 10 years, it's about fourfold, and that has now been confirmed by various other studies. It's just, and of course, this was a study done by friends of mine in a town in Germany called Nila, where the judge ordered that the cell phone industry had to pay for the study. And so it showed the increased cancer rates starting after 5 years, shooting sharply up. And then, of course, the German government asked the cell phone industry what you want to do about that. And the cell phone industry in Europe said, well, we need to do more studies. And guess how long they did their studies for? For 4 years. They did 10 studies, paid for by the German government for 4 years, and showed no increase in cancer rates in 4 years. Well, we knew that before they did that there was no increase in cancer rates for 4 years. But we don't live just for 4 years. Some of us live even up to 40 or 50, maybe even 80. And so it's a sad story of our time. My parents had the Second World War and Adolf Hitler to deal with. We have this issue as the big issue of our time. The toxicity issue that was from the 50s to the 90s, and many of us fought the battles on that. I was involved in the amalgam war. It was called the Third Amalgam War, trying to get mercury fillings out of the teeth of people. We were largely successful on those fronts, but sneaking up on us was the communications industry, using wavelengths and using methods that are unnecessary, unhealthy, dangerous, and are simply driven by greed. They're not driven by any intelligence. And we can have, everybody can have their computer and they can have their cell phone, and there is safe ways of doing that, but it's not what we're doing currently.